Before I spill this cup of piping British drama, drop a comment. Was I right to lawyer up? Or just a bitter corporate bastard with mummy issues? And if you're new, hit subscribe. I ruin legacies on this channel daily. Right, so picture this. The company's annual anniversary party. A posh little do designed to make very rich men feel even more smug about themselves. It had all the usual trimmings. Fake laughter, inflated egos, and enough lukewarm Chardonnay to sedate a rugby team. The sort of event where everyone's pretending to love each other while secretly planning a coup over the cheese board. My dad, CEO, company founder, and walking midlife crisis in an overpriced waistcoat, was in his element. Holding court like he was Winston Bloody Churchill, regaling the room with stories about the early days when men were men, and emails didn't exist. There was clapping. There was nodding. There was a very tense quiche. And then there was me, his eldest son. Technically, biologically, yes. Emotionally, somewhere between forgotten intern and disappointing houseplant. I was propped in the corner like a fire extinguisher, visible, technically useful in theory, but mostly ignored until something caught fire. Spoiler alert, things would catch fire. Now let's talk about my brother, the golden boy, the crown prince of nepotism. He rocked up in some designer suit I'm pretty sure cost more than my car. Hair slicked back like a Love Island contestant, trying to appear intellectual. He's the sort of person who probably moisturizes with anti-aging, unicorn blood, and starts sentences with, as someone who wakes up at 5 a.m. And everyone fawned. Oh, look at him, so professional, so poised, so full of beige opinions and protein shakes. Meanwhile, I was clinging to a glass of Prosecco like it was the last bit of joy in my life, silently wondering if anyone would notice if I ate 6 sausage rolls in a row. Anyway, the whole thing felt less like a party and more like a televised announcement of who gets the family empire and who gets politely erased from the family WhatsApp. Spoiler, I was not getting the empire. But you know, I smiled, I clapped. I made polite small talk with Deborah from HR, who called me the quiet one in a tone usually reserved for serial killers. Because that's what we do in this country, isn't it? We smile through the emotional trauma, sip tepid wine, and cry in the toilets in complete silence. By the way, no one told me it was going to be that kind of party. The kind of party where your own father, in a room full of investors, clients, and middle-aged men in tragic brogues, publicly reminds everyone that you peaked at birth and have been coasting ever since. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All you need to know right now is, the party was sparkling. My self-esteem was circling the drain, and my dad, well, he was just getting warmed up. So, at some point, after the waiters had topped everyone's glasses with something that vaguely resembled Prosecco and definitely tasted like a Tesco, value heartbreak, my dad decided it was time for the speech. You know, the one. The big corporate moment he'd clearly been rehearsing in his head since the day he realized both his sons had functioning limbs, but only one had future CEO hair. Now I say stage, but what I actually mean is the marble staircase he had installed during the last office renovation. The same one he claimed was just architectural, as if we didn't all know he picked it specifically because it made him look like he was descending from heaven every time he came down for a staff meeting. Subtlety has never really been his thing, neither has fatherhood, come to think of it. Anyway, he clears his throat like a man preparing to deliver either a toast or a eulogy, and launches into it. Legacy, growth, vision, the usual verbal salad men, like him, toss around to justify being emotionally absent for 18 years. Everyone's nodding along, drunk enough to pretend they care but not quite drunk, enough to stop checking their phones under the table. And then comes the announcement. The moment. And one day, my son, my youngest, will take over as CEO. He's everything this company represents. Strong, forward-thinking, dependable, blah blah blah, inspirational crap. Something about next generation, I don't know. I was too busy watching the investors mentally update their LinkedIns to include his name. The jazz quartet even changed key. Like the soundtrack knew this was the coronation of Golden Boy himself. And just when you think he might forget I even exist, which, honestly, would have been preferable, he swivels his head in my direction, plasters on this dead-eyed smile, and says, "And some of us contribute in other ways." He's got a very supportive presence. Right, supportive presence. Like a bloody coat rack. Now, I don't know if you've ever been publicly reduced to a decorative object by your own father while standing next to a bowl of prawn cocktail. But let me tell you, it's a unique sort of spiritual death. A little bit of your soul packs a bag, grabs a train to Margate, and refuses to come back. Everyone laughed. Of course they did. The polite sort of chuckle you do when you're not sure if something's funny or just deeply tragic. Even the jazz quartet paused. Which is ironic, really, since they'd been playing through the fire alarm earlier, but this was too awkward to ignore. My brother gave me that smug side eye, you know. The kind that says awkward mate, but also I win. And I stood there, smiling like someone had just announced I was being gently euthanized for morale purposes, because in that moment I wasn't a person. I was a prop. The family-friendly cautionary tale. But of course I didn't say anything. Because God forbid we disrupt the narrative, because that would be impolite. So I raised my glass, nodded like I'd just been thanked for hosting a bake sale, and died a bit more inside, because nothing says fatherly love. Quite like getting roasted alive at a corporate party in front of a man named Clive from accounts. So there I was, standing under the flickering fairy lights of a budget, champagne reception, smiling like a hostage in a toothpaste advert, the kind where the teeth are fine but the eyes are screaming for help. My glass of Prosecco, which had already tasted like sadness and missed opportunities, suddenly developed a bold new flavor. Profile, vintage regret, with subtle notes of fury and undertones of, this family is a bin fire. And still I smiled. Because in my family that's what you do. You smile while your dad casually obliterates your self-worth in front of a room full of men named Rupert and Giles. You nod politely while your baby brother is handed your entire future like it's a second helping of trifle, and you definitely don't cry into your vol au vents. Not again. I took a sip, mostly to stop myself from saying something deeply regrettable, like a cheers to being your least successful sperm. Honestly, just once, I'd like to attend a family function where I'm not ritually emotionally kneecapped before the second course, maybe even one where I'm referred to by name and not just as the other one. But alas, that's not the tradition. No, in our house, generational trauma is served with a side of smoked salmon and networking opportunities, and it's always the same. The build-up, the speech, the big brother reveal, and then me, dragged out like a prop from the props department of disappointment. He's got a very supportive presence. I mean, what even is that? Am I a potted plant? A decorative throw pillow? A haunted aura that helps the golden child shine brighter? Meanwhile, my inner monologue is just going, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Shall we hand him the crown now or wait until you've completely dismantled what's left of my self-esteem in front of Clive and the jazz quartet? I glanced around. Everyone was smiling, nodding, laughing. One bloke even patted my dad on the back, like he'd just delivered the world's funniest anecdote instead of emotionally decapitating his eldest son in public. And me, I just kept standing there, clutching my glass like it was a life preserver in a sea of rich wankers, quietly fantasizing about faking a heart attack or maybe just combusting out of sheer passive-aggressive tension. But I didn't, because apparently I'm the stable one. And stability in this family just means quietly enduring years of psychological warfare while pretending everything's fine, which it very much is not. Just as I was mentally rehearsing my allergic reaction to something, anything, just so I could make a dignified exit without crying into the canapé tray, this bloke strolls up. Mid-40s, sharp suit, eyebrows so sharply arched they looked like they could cut glass. Proper posh, but not in the I've got a trust fund way. More like, I'm used to winning arguments in country clubs and hate small talk. He stops right in front of me and stares, like he's trying to connect to Wi-Fi, through my very essence. I swear I could practically hear the dial-up noises in my head. Then, as if solving the world's most awkward crossword puzzle, he says and slowly, like he's trying not to offend anyone, but also not entirely convinced I'm human. You're the son of... Right then, my brain did the only logical thing and went, oh, brilliant. Another round of whose disappointment is this then? Fantastic. Can I get a prize for best supporting role in a family drama? Or is it just silent suffering and a lifetime supply of cold dinners? Meanwhile, my face is doing that forced smile that's basically a grimace with benefits. I'm thinking, mate, if you're fishing for a polite way to say, do you come with the warranty? I'm not your guy. But the real kicker? This stranger's eyebrows didn't even twitch at the family roast that had just gone down 30 seconds earlier. No recognition, no sympathy, just pure, unfiltered curiosity wrapped in posh British bewilderment. And honestly, that's when things went sideways. Because when a stranger, not even someone who knows you, starts piecing together your family drama in front of a room full of posh suits and awkward jazz, you know it's not going to end well. Yet somehow, despite all my internal screaming, I just nodded. Because sometimes, that's all you can do when your life turns into a very public episode of EastEnders meets Downton Abbey, but with less dignity and more spilled drinks. The man leans in, voice dropping like he's about to reveal the secret recipe for the best chippy batter in town. Jonathan Blythe. Aren't you? Now if you're thinking, who the hell is Jonathan Blythe? Fair enough. To most, he's just some bloke with a posh name. That sounds like a minor character in a Jane Austen adaptation. But to my dad, that name landed on him like a council tax bill you didn't know was coming. Wrapped up in a letter from the bailiffs and signed with a fat, red stamp screaming pay up. Jonathan Blythe was the co-founder of the company, the original one, back when the place was more garage startup and less corporate jungle with free biscuits. But oh, there's a twist. Rumor had it Jonathan Blythe might just be my actual biological father. Yeah, that kind of family sitcom plot twist. Nobody asks for, but everyone ends up watching with popcorn and a face full of disbelief. The room went dead. Not just the usual polite, oh dear silence. I mean full funeral hush. The kind where even the bar staff stopped shaking cocktails, mid-air like someone had hit the pause button on life. The jazz quartet, who moments ago were doing their best impression of smooth evening vibes, suddenly looked like they'd been invited to perform at a wake. Dad's face went from king of the castle to man who's just stepped in something truly unpleasant. You know that look. The one where the smile freezes halfway, the jaw tightens, and the brain is desperately scrambling for damage. Control speeches that don't involve resignations or a one-way ticket to Antarctica. Meanwhile, I'm standing there thinking, well, isn't this a right treat? Like a council estate drama with all the subtlety of a kebab shop argument at 3 a.m. I wanted to say something witty. Maybe, oh, that explains a lot. Or blimey, I was hoping for a less complicated family tree. But hey, who's counting? Instead, I just watched the slow, awkward dance of glances between my dad and this stranger, both of them clearly weighing whether to fight, flee, or pretend this never happened over the complimentary canapes. At that moment, I knew this party had officially jumped the shark, landed in a muddy puddle, and was now being dragged through every embarrassing family secret in the book, with me right at the center of the mud splash. So here's the kicker. Turns out back when the company was just a twinkle in some entrepreneur's eye, Dad and this Jonathan bloke were actually business partners, like proper mates plotting world domination through spreadsheets and awkward boardroom small talk. Then suddenly, Jonathan mysteriously resigned, vanished faster than your last decent takeaway on a Friday night. Poof, gone from every record like a dodgy Tinder date who ghosted before you even got a pint together. Except, spoiler alert, he didn't just disappear into thin air. Nah, he had a thing with Mom. Yep. The woman who went on to marry Dad, who, bless him, raised me as his own and expertly shoved the whole sordid affair under the corporate rug. You know, the kind of rug that's so thick it's practically a moat. Perfect for drowning awkward family secrets. But guess what, that rug? Well, it's been yanked clean off. And suddenly the floorboards underneath are squeaking louder than a council estate cat fight at 3 a.m. Cue my inner monologue screaming, brilliant. Just what I needed. Family drama served with a side of, who's your real dad? And a dollop of let's all pretend this never happened. Dad's looking like someone just told him his favorite football team's been relegated for life. The sort of face that says, why me, why now? Can I just get a quiet pint instead? Meanwhile, I'm standing there, marinating in this glorious mess, wondering if I should start charging admission for this soap opera, or if I should just hand out tissues and a stiff drink to the audience. It's like the worst episode of EastEnders meets The Apprentice with a sprinkle of Gogglebox for good measure. And me, I'm stuck in the middle, the unpaid extra in this family circus, wondering how on earth my life got this messy without a single chippy tea to soothe the soul. Honestly, if there was an award for most dramatic family secret unveiling at a corporate party, I was about to win gold, or at least a consolation prize of a sausage roll and a very awkward apology from the catering staff. So this stranger, right? Turns out he's Jonathan's solicitor. Yes, the bloke who's been hunting me down for years like I'm some rare Pokemon or the last biscuit in the tin. Apparently, Jonathan left me something in his will. And no, it's not just some dusty old photo album or a dodgy toaster. It's shares. Proper shares. The kind that say, "Congratulations, mate. You've got yourself a seat at the boardroom table, whether anyone likes it or not." Cue Dad's face in a mix of horror, disbelief, and please God, no, all mashed together like a bad curry. He looked like he wanted to bite through his tie, or maybe just disappear under the nearest table and pretend this was all a nightmare, caused by too much lukewarm wine. And then there's my brother, who went so pale you'd think someone just told him his gym membership got canceled, and, to add insult to injury, the inheritance that was supposed to be his personal piggy bank just got snatched by me. Honestly, the poor lad looked like he'd been told Chippy. Tea was off the menu for life, and we all know that's a proper crisis in any British household. Meanwhile, I'm standing there, trying not to grin like I just won the family version of Game of Thrones, except instead of dragons and swords, it's all board meetings and passive-aggressive PowerPoint presentations. My inner monologue? Oh, it was screaming. Well. Looks like the underdog just got handed the crown, and here I was, thinking I'd be stuck as the family's emotional doormat forever. Dad's clenching fists were practically writing a resignation letter themselves, and brother was probably Googling how to disown a sibling without causing a scene. Spoiler, it's impossible, mate. At this point, I'm half expecting the jazz quartet to drop their instruments and start playing the Imperial March. Because honestly, the corporate version of Game of Thrones just got a whole lot messier. And me? I'm armed with shares and a smirk, ready to watch the chaos unfold. Right after the solicitor dropped the bombshell, the room did that classic British thing, the one where everyone suddenly remembers they have to be polite, but really wants to choke on their cucumber sandwiches. People started whispering, like we were all in some sort of corporate church. And the scandal was the latest hymn. Directors glanced sideways, investors fiddled nervously with their cufflinks, and somewhere near the canapé table, a bloke actually whipped out a notepad and started scribbling, like he was at a bloody royal inquiry. Me? I got the polite summons? Would you mind stepping into another room for a quick chat? Translation: get lost before you wreck. Dad's carefully curated image of the family firm being the second coming of jolly good show. I walked out feeling like a suspect in a police drama, minus the cool soundtrack and any chance of an alibi. Dad tried to smile, bless him, but it came out less warm family man and more man who just swallowed a wasp. A nervous twitch that screamed, "How on earth did my life come to this?" He leaned in and whispered, because whispers are the safest way to pretend nothing's happened. Let's not make a scene. That line, oh, the irony. The man who orchestrated a public takedown with a microphone and an ego so massive it could have crushed the entire Canary Wharf complex wanted me to keep quiet now, like I was the one holding a giant neon sign saying family drama lives here. Meanwhile, my brother was hovering nearby, looking like someone had just announced his chippy tea was being replaced with rabbit food. You know the look. Equal parts scandalized and utterly betrayed by life's cruel sense of humor. And me? I was caught somewhere between wanting to burst out laughing and just quietly losing my mind. Because nothing says welcome to the family business quite like a polite, simmering meltdown wrapped in corporate jargon and passive-aggressive glances. Classic British politeness will implode, but quietly thank you very much. So after all the polite whispers and passive-aggressive stares, they finally made me the offer. You know the type, the classic hush money deal, wrapped in corporate silk and sprinkled with the usual platitudes. Walk away quietly, take the payout, don't stir the pot. The kind of deal that sounds a bit like a bribe, but with more spreadsheets and less honesty. And honestly, I've been playing the silent game my whole life, standing in the shadows while Dad treated my brother like he was the second coming of Prince William, and me, well, I was basically the office stationary, quiet, unnoticed, and useful only when absolutely necessary. Filing cabinet, son, at your service. I mean, why complain when you can be the invisible one, right? That was my lot. The underdog, the other son, and the bloke you invite to family dinners, so people can feel like they're doing their duty to humanity. But now they want me to sign on the dotted line, tuck my tail, and vanish like a decent curry after a night out. Like hell. So, I did the only thing that made any kind of maddening sense. I asked for a lawyer. Because if life's handed me the role of the family's official disappointment, at least I'd have someone sharp on my side to negotiate the terms, someone who could turn the corporate dagger into a stabbing incident they couldn't ignore. Cue the collective intake of breath from the boardroom crew. You could almost hear their manicured nails dragging down chalkboards. And there I was, standing with my metaphorical middle finger held high, wondering if this was the moment. I finally burned the whole bloody castle down, or cashed in and bought a small island somewhere nobody could find me. Either way, I was done being the background noise in their perfect family soundtrack. Because sometimes, you've got to stop being the bloke who always says sorry, and start being the one who says, "No thanks, I'll take the bloody lot." So here we are. Yours truly now has a crack team of legal eagles on speed dial, a legitimate claim to the family business, and a dad who looks like he's aged about 6 years in the last 3 weeks, and which, honestly, is doing wonders for my self-esteem, because if he's crumbling, maybe I'm finally climbing. Am I ready to run the bloody company? Honestly, I don't know. The idea of stepping into the CEO shoes makes me want to lie down with a cuppa and a packet of hobnobs and contemplate the pointlessness of existence for a solid hour. But the one thing I do know, next year's company shindig, the same one where I used to be the invisible son, the awkward gap in the seating plan, I'll be the one clutching the mic, giving the speech, and I'm planning to kick off with something like, not everyone can be useful, but some of us turn out to be essential. Because let's be honest, I was the family's emotional filing cabinet for years, collecting all the crap nobody else wanted to sort out. But now, I'm the bastard who's not just here for the chippy tea and awkward small talk. I'm here with the keys to the castle. And isn't that just the perfect British irony? The son who barely breathed in the family photo is now the one they can't ignore. Will I be a model CEO? Probably not. I'll be too busy wondering if the boardroom comes with a decent coffee machine, or at least a kettle that doesn't sound like it's summoning the apocalypse. But hey, if I've learned anything from this mess, it's that sometimes you have to stop apologizing for being a bastard and start cashing in on it. Because in this mad world, a bastard with shares is a bastard with power. And frankly, power sounds better than being the bloke everyone forgets to invite for a pint. So cheers to that.